And we're back outside the lines with my esteemed guest, Colin Rocker-Rice, joining us from the East Coast here. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Just trying to stay dry here in New York, but happy to be here.
That's awesome. So outside of the normal kind of day-to-day with the podcast today, I have an interview with me today. So we're going to dive into who you are, what you're all about. For those of you who don't know, he's got a massive TikTok following and growing YouTube channel, things like that. So I'll let you kind of give the full explanation for yourself here.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm Colin Rice, a digital strategist for a small consulting firm, and then on the side, I'm also a content creator on TikTok, Instagram, and soon to be YouTube. We'll see. We're a little in stealth mode there, but I primarily do content on my career, which is of course in consulting, as well as personal finance and a little bit of productivity tips here and there as well.
Awesome. So what made you decide to go into consulting? Because typically the normal traditional college route, did you, okay, I'll go back up there. Did you graduate from a 4-year? Did you skip the whole thing? Did you join the tech talk verse of the, you don't need a college degree, just sit through it and get your resume through and kind of break into tech?
Yeah, we weren't quite in that world, I feel, when I graduated high school. But no, I went to a 4-year college, so I ended up graduating from the University of Georgia, which was awesome. Go Dogs! So we won a championship recently, so you got to rep whenever possible. But yeah, I majored in management information systems, which is kind of like a business tech degree, people call it. So if you want to go into tech, but you're not that good at math or stats, they sort of push you into MIS. So that's where I was pushed. And yeah, I love that degree, loved the business college experience. And then to sort of fold that into your next question, I always had this desire to sort of work in this gray zone between what I would call primarily like extroverted businessy people type of careers. Maybe like sales is the purest form of that, but also dealing with technology in the sense where you could have like a software engineer, right, sitting on the other side of that spectrum. And so I saw MIS as the degree that would sit in sort of the middle of that path. And then I basically saw consulting specifically around technology-based solutions, so using technology for good or to solve a problem as the best use of my talent, my skills, my interests. And so that's sort of where I ended up after graduation.
Did you go into college knowing you wanted to be somewhere in this field, or did you kind of just come in kind of just not really knowing what you wanted to do like everyone else?
Right. Yeah, so that's a good question. I got into college and I wanted to be a web developer actually, and so or I guess a web designer. And so I had taken a couple like online, watched a couple of videos or whatever. But when I got into the business college, one of the first things I did was I ended up at this like networking event for upperclassmen that I shouldn't have been at, but I knew I was in a class with an upperclassman and he told me that he was going. And so I just kind of like showed up in a suit and I said, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And so they sort of let me in. But I'll never forget, I was at this event and there was this guy, this older professional who was there networking with students, and he just had like this air about him, and he was basically like holding court, and like all of the seniors, people that I at that point as an incoming freshman sort of looked up to, and he was just like, you could tell they all wanted to work for him and for the company that he was working for. And he was, sharply dressed. He seemed to know like everything right at the time. And I walk up to him, right, with all of the, confidence and cockiness of like an incoming high school senior, thinking like I'm still that guy, right? And I ask him what he does, and he said, "Oh, well, I'm in consulting." And I'm like, "Oh, what's consulting?" And he sort of like he sort of chews me out basically in front of all like these seniors. And so like I feel just like, like tail between my legs, like, oh my God, like how could he do that? And then later that night, I basically get back to my dorm room and I'm like, I want to be that guy. Like I want to be this guy who, if I can like, dress in nice clothes, fly around the country, point at PowerPoint slides and tell people what to do, and it was sort of this perfect mix because he very much had a foundational technical understanding of what was going on, but he talked to people and he interfaced with executives and he solved business problems. And these are some of the things that I always kind of had an inclination towards. And so I guess that was sort of my introduction to consulting. And then through my classes and some of the internships I took, I sort of learned more about the business and thought that, hey, this could be a pretty cool thing to do. So yeah.
that lined up perfectly. I was just going to ask what made you choose such like a broad and very open-ended field like consulting, because like you said, it's you either go in thinking you're going to be a software engineer or you're going to join this, I mean, a finance firm. Like that's usually
Right.
the way to
Yeah.
go. But how have you managed to, that's the next biggest question of how did you manage like early on in your career to really make you feel heard in your career? Like you said, you're dealing with executives, you're dealing with different companies and older people who really won't take a 21 or 22-year-old kid seriously, coming into them, telling them how they should be running their business.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. To sort of back up a little bit, I do think that consulting does sometimes get like a bad rap because it is so nebulous and it is so broad, right? At the end of the day, I mean, if you think of just the word consulting, right? I mean, a personal trainer can be a consultant, right? A
Yeah.
nutrition can be a consultant, but the consulting industry as a whole, right? If you think of the classic B2B version, right? A guy shows up in a suit with a briefcase and he walks out with a PowerPoint slide, right? Like it's really about just like showing up and using a process, whether that's a common process or something you've developed within your own organization, and applying it to a bunch of different situations and sort of seeing what the opportunities are to advance that business. And so the fact that it is so broad, I think it definitely gets a lot of hate thrown my way. For better or worse, a reason for a lot of engagement on my videos. I mean, a lot of people hate consulting, but they also follow me and engage with my content. So I invite it, join in the comment section and we'll talk about it. But yeah, that's what I like about it. I think to answer your next question about coming in as a young person, is I think that people, especially in the earlier parts of their careers, they overestimate some of the hard skills, and I think they underestimate some of the soft skills. And I think this is more important now, as our careers and as our college experiences even become more like digital, right? Because the fact of the matter is, once you're in the door at this firm, and this is, I think, applicable to like finance, in any business career, really, any corporate job, marketing, once you're in the door, you've already proven to the interviewer and the people that hired you that you can do the job at some level of competency, right? Unless you're just the greatest sociopath ever, right? And that's like a separate thing. But like once you're there, I think you differentiate yourself with your personal and professional brand. And so it's like, how do you do something that's uniquely yours that makes you stand out, right? The smallest little example of this is when I joined my first project out of school. I was in charge of literally going around the team and asking people what their travel status would be for the next week. And so I have like a professional college degree. And one thing I would do every single Wednesday is I'd walk around the floor of the client site and I'd find every consultant, with a consulting, outfit on. I'd ask, hey, so, where are you going to be next week? You're going to be at this client site, that client site. And I'd put that all into an email and I have to send that email out. Right. That was my job, right? Which is just crazy. But at the end of that email, I would add a little like travel fun fact, right? Because we were like an international team. We were from all over the world and we converged on, the city of Atlanta at the time. And so I put in these little facts. And first I thought no one was reading them because nobody responded to them. But after a while, people that I would send the update out, they would respond back, right? Which shows that just like in a very small, little way, like I am, being noticed and recognizing this is something specific that I could do. And so I think for anyone coming into a job or even moving into more like advanced coursework in their degree, if they're in school, like try to figure out the ways that you can differentiate yourself and really not just do something well, but do something, the way that you would do it, and try to brand it and put your own spin on it in any way.
It sounds like you said also just be intentional about the things you're doing. Like, I'm not sure if you meant to be doing that and expected a certain outcome out of it, but it worked out in your favor in the end.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
The next big thing I mentioned a little bit earlier was the portion of your work that overlaps with content quite a bit. How did you start creating content? Why did you start creating content? What does that look like on your end? Because everyone starts or creates something for a reason. Was it like an outlet, or was it just to poke fun at your profession?
Yeah, great. Again, another great question. I think I know like a big part of it was just like boredom, like that classic like 2020 in quarantine, 2 weeks to stop the spread. It's now month 4. Like, what are we doing here? And I was just like, let me try. Because at the time, right, I think I started out like a lot of, um, elder statesmen, as I like to call millennials now, and we sort of made fun of this app, called TikTok, or at the time Musically or whatever it was. And so I ended up downloading it finally. And then I started posting, a couple of videos just to, I think what it was for me at the end was honestly like it was Instagram stories, but everyone who followed me, I did not know. So I could sort of do whatever I wanted. Right. And so I would just make like videos about anything and everything. And then eventually I just started, somewhat one way or another, I just started talking about my job, right? Because I had done pretty much everything else. And those were the videos that sort of started to take off again, because I think I've approached my job, in maybe a way that resonates with a lot of people, right? Or that, the way I've gotten here maybe is how other people may have to get here. And so that sort of told me that, hey, maybe I should start focusing on that sort of content. And so I'm at a point now where, yeah, I mean, I think I'm very grateful to work in an industry like consulting, because I think due to the broadness of it, and a lot of people, I mean, I would like, what high schooler knows anything about consulting? You know what I mean? If you're a young person on some of these apps, you've never even heard of this industry. And so I think the fact that I, in some ways, in the very first introduction that people have to this field and this kind of work is kind of exciting. But yeah, that's sort of how it came about. And it's been pretty cool. The sort of impact I've been able to have on some people. So
I was going to say, it looks like you're spreading your wings and really focusing a lot on content. It's turning out to be a great conversation starter, at the very least for you.
Yeah, it definitely comes with its own set of learning curve. I mean, there is no, influencing 101 or creator intro course. And so you sort of have to learn things as you go about and set up like a consultant would, I guess, like processes and systems that work best for you. So I make most of my content on one day of the week, which may sound, weird, but I also film all the time. And so I can take clips that I maybe filmed on my phone like 2 weeks ago and then mesh them together with some stuff, 2 days ago, and then put some text over it, and that's it. Right. And so I think for me, figuring out a way to maintain a posting rate of like 2 to 3 times a day, which is where I'm at right now, has been good, to put those systems in place and make sure I can still create my content and maintain my job and also maintain my sanity. Right.
Yeah. Well, that little tidbit right there of like batch creating your content is what really keeps people. Everyone thinks you have to go in and just like, you have to have something to post every single day. Of like, if you focus on filming all on one day, recording all your content on one day, then you don't have to worry about doing it every single day. Like people think it has to be like this big job to be a content creator. And that's not it at all.
Not at all. I mean, another big thing for me is I make a lot of content straight from my community. I mean, I'm constantly going back to videos that were successful in the past and looking at all the comments. And if someone is asking me a question that I think I could better address in a 20 to 35 second, rant or spiel, I'll do that. And then I'll reply. And sometimes that video gets big. And then there are all these other comments. And it's sort of this daisy chain of like, it's a renewable source of like content ideas, because I'm directly sourcing them from people who are watching me and responding to what I'm posting. So that's been pretty cool too.
Yeah. The follow-up to that, you do have a full-time job. Does your job have any idea what you're doing, or have you had to let your boss know what's going on? What's the deal there?
Yeah, so it's pretty much a rule that the lower, I guess not the lower, the younger the person in my office is, the higher probability they've seen one of my videos. We've actually got this intern class of like 10 people or so coming in the summer, and I'm actually terrified because I'm sure like there's probably going to be a large portion of that intern class, right, that has at least seen one of my videos, right? I'm going to get ousted in the lunchroom or something. But no, I mean, when I started to gain even the smallest of followings, you always, of course, want to be cognizant of what could get out, and you always want to practice, proper social media, approaches or whatever. So I'm not too worried about any one person finding out, because I think the way I approach my content is I do think consulting can be a force for good. And so I always try to take that outlook, and I like what I do. And so, maybe if I was out here, talking about, you won't believe, what this one client did.
Yeah.
and disclosing trade secrets. I mean, that would be something else. But at the end of the day, I love my job. I love making content, and I feel thankful that I'm at a place where it seems I can do both. So that's nice.
I was going to say a lot of your content is, I don't want to say family friendly, but it's at least family friendly from a job perspective. Like they don't kind of come after you for, not going to sue you for disclosing any trade secrets like you mentioned.
I hope not. Yeah.
That leads me into the type of content you're posting. And I alluded to it earlier. If you're on TikTok, you understand there's a side of the consulting TikTok that is just about the ambiguity of the job and the comedic effects to a lot of what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. What made you decide to go in the more of like the career helpful outlet side of things instead of going the comedy route?
Yeah. So I think, again, like I said earlier, I do think consulting can be a force for good. And then I'm of the mind where it's always nice at the very least to get like a difference of perspective. And, this may be just thinking about this in the call, I think a big reason for some of my growth is that I think that I know of one of the few people in this profession that has not, dedicated the totality of my online presence to like ripping it up. Right. Because I think there are tons of meme pages and stuff. And don't get me wrong, like I definitely do poke fun at some of the weirdness of the profession, right? Or some of the weird like perks and situations you can get into doing this kind of work. But I do think that one, there's validity in just having like a difference of opinion. And I genuinely, believe in what I'm doing and the value I'm able to provide. And you'll see, like, I don't, I'm not fighting anyone in the comments, but I always do kind of respond and, just sort of see where people are coming from, because I do think that, people always fear what they don't understand. And so if I can explain my job in the best way possible, and in the most nuanced way possible, I think that can help move the needle in terms of making people have a bit more of a positive outlook on the industry.
That is awesome. And the next question, I know it's a bit touchy, but it's consulting is, like you said, it's project based with a lot of it. You're working with different clients here and there. What does the lifespan of a consultant look like at a specific firm? Like, do you guys just stay with the firm for a long time? Do you guys jump ship to a different client? Like, I don't know how that all works.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I love questions like these because I sort of get to do these deep dives on the industry. So I think in most places, most consulting firms, your break point is about like 2 years. So if you hire a consultant out of school at around the 2-year mark, which is most places when you get your first promotion from like say analyst to like a full consultant or whatever that hurdle is, people will take that promotion and that bonus and then they'll go somewhere else. And that's like, I mean, when I was at my first job at one of the larger big four consulting firms, I would say probably 30 to 40% of my class was like gone within those first 2 years. Right.
Oh, wow.
And I think at that point, you sort of get this like, you kind of get this like pyramid where the longer you stay at a consulting firm, basically, the higher odds that you'll continue to stay at the consulting firm, because I guess you sort of eventually alter your life in a way where it allows you to do this job for a long period of time. And so, you marry someone who's okay with you, not being there right Monday through Thursday because you may be at the client site, right? And that, I don't know how prevalent that is today, but when I was in consulting, right, I was actually Monday through Friday. And so I would leave my apartment at like 5 a.m. on Monday, and I wouldn't get back until like 9:30 p.m. on like Friday, basically barely living in the city I was paying, $1,600 plus a month, rent to stay in. But yeah, that's your typical life cycle. And then, a lot of consultants I know go to work for previous clients. Obviously, a lot of people go into graduate school programs like MBAs. Some people make the leap into finance, for whatever reason. So there are a lot of different paths. Some people go into entrepreneurship, but yeah, that 2-year mark is, I think, pretty critical. And if you make it over that hurdle, more often than not, I guess the next major break point is like manager. And that's like, call it like 6 to 8 years in. So from the jump, right, at that 6 to 8 year mark, when people are making that next level, because then it becomes kind of a sales show, right? At that point, the firm basically is looking at you to be someone who is now learning how to bring in new business for the firm. And so if you don't want to do that, or if you're not successful in doing that in terms of expanding existing projects or getting net new business, right? I mean, you go and do something else. And so I would say those are the kind of the two major break points in the profession that I've seen.
Wow. Yeah, that is actually so interesting. What are your kind of aspirations outside of your traditional career? I would say, do you have any, and the one big thing I mentioned was like full-time content creator. Do you have plans on building that community out more? I know I've been following you for a bit now, so I know you have an interest in the NFT land and cryptocurrency things. So any win big on any crypto coins or things like that? What's your deal there?
Yeah. So I would say that my approach to content creation and sort of building this following online is that, and this has matured over time, right? It started out as boredom, then we've gone here, then we've gone there, but I sort of see it as an asset that I can leverage into other opportunities. I don't think at this point the idea of like being a full-time content creator, basically like living and dying by the brand deals I'm able to bring in, or direct monetization through like coaching, ebooks, and courses and stuff. That's not, and hats off to people who do that. That's incredible. That's awesome. I know plenty of people in New York who do, but I guess that's not my ultimate ambition with this. But I would like to build kind of a real community of people who like me, for me, because in 5 years, I may not even be in consulting. I may not even be giving career advice. And so I'm hoping that the type of content I'm making and how I show up on these platforms, I'm doing so in a way that allows me to build a group of people around me who like Colin, not necessarily this guy who gives consulting and career advice. And so that's sort of where I'm at with content, just using it sort of as an asset to leverage into other opportunities, right? In terms of my career, I mean, again, I love consulting. I like going into places and trying to figure it out and solve the issues. And so I don't know. I mean, I definitely like where I'm at right now, but it would be nice to sort of see, what opportunities are, because again, as my, going back to personal and professional brand, I mean, that is how you differentiate yourself. And so if there's a way I can combine my, call it like social proof and like audience leverage with my knowledge of how to fix a business and apply technology to a situation, I mean, I'd be open to that too. I'm interested in that too, right? And so that's exciting to think about, but I don't think I'm close. And so we'll see where we go. And then, yeah, man, until then, just flipping these NFTs on the side has been an interesting little side hustle.
That is so cool. Have you ever thought of leveraging your community now, or leveraging that you're following within your current position with work?
You're saying, has my following on social media ever helped me in like my day-to-day job?
Yeah.
Oh, 0%. Never ever. not at all. And if so, maybe I'm just not, hip to the game, but like no, my clients, I could not care less that I'd spend my nights and weekends making TikToks, and they probably wish I didn't, so I could spend more time, what they've hired us to do. But yeah, it's definitely been at this point more of a one-way street, in terms of the other way, right? The situations I encounter at work and my approach to them and the things I'm still learning, right? I'm just about 4 years into my career. I am not the expert, right? I'm just a voice. And so being able to apply what I'm learning has definitely helped me make videos. But at this point, again, could always change, but it's a pretty one-way street. So I'm not quite at the point where I can just bust out, a ring light and start filming content during a client call. So
that takes me back to a lot of people you see on Twitter, wherever you're searching about, is people always complain, if I had this following, I'd be so far ahead in my career. If I had this following, I could do X, Y, and Z. And you're living proof that you don't need, like, sometimes they don't even care.
Yeah, not at all. But again, I will say, very much in some ways the nature of my profession, right? Because I had the opportunity to attend an event at this real estate office, right? And I was talking to some of their brokers, and obviously as a broker, you're a salesperson, right? So it's about your network and your ability to bring buyers and sellers together, and they sell homes and condos through social media all the time, right? So depending on your industry, right? If you're a personal trainer, or if you're an educator that does private tutoring. I mean, there are definitely ways where these people are able to use and leverage their following to result in actual income. But at this point, my main 9 to 5 just doesn't see that direct correlation. But I mean, who knows? It's honestly something to think about. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Things can change, like you said.
Yeah, 100%.
So you're doing it a lot in your day to day. You're creating content on the side. You're flipping NFTs on the side. I'll let you speak to your personal life if you'd like to disclose a little bit more about that. But how do you manage to do everything that you do? Like you said, it's a busy life that you live.
Yeah. So
Or social media makes it seem that way.
yeah, well, look, in the past 2 years, I've been, promoted at my job. I've started making content on 2, almost 3 platforms. I had an e-commerce business that then turned into a podcast. I was personal training this person on the side, right? I was training for the marathon that I ran in 2021. I mean, I don't think there was maybe like 2 months when I was doing all that at once, right? And those were tough times for sure. But I definitely like to keep a full plate, and I just sort of like to squeeze the juice. You know what I mean? Like I'm here for as long as I'm here, and then I got to go somewhere else. So for me, my whole approach is that as long as I'm willing and I'm able, and what I've been focusing on more now is really identifying opportunities that I'm truly passionate about, that just aren't like opportunities, right, to make a couple bucks, but like things that I actually can be a unique voice and a unique addition to the space. I'm totally able to do it. What I will say is managing that is sometimes definitely tough, a lot of times actually. And so some of the things that I do is, number one, always asking myself and really trying to get a good handle on why I'm doing something, making content now and the way I'm doing it. I get a lot of inbound messages from brands, and I get a lot of opportunities to work with people and promote stuff. And if it's a good fit, and the numbers right, like I'll definitely do it. I'm not closed off to that, but I'm definitely always mindful of like what I need in the time I need for me to feel like recharged and able to bring myself to all these other opportunities that I'm doing, and also having a good support system. So I have a wonderful fiance. We're getting married later this year. Thank you. Which is incredible. And I think she does an excellent job of supporting me, but also being that sounding board, where it's like, you are a career creator. Why are you trying to promote auto loans? You don't even have a car, right? Like these situations, like these are conversations I have to have with her, because otherwise I'll be chasing my own tail and just going off on a million different directions. So it's nice to have people around you who can help you identify, the things you should be doing, and also just staying true to who you are and giving yourself enough space to show up as much as you can and as long as you can with the things you've already dedicated yourself to.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you scared to even ask the question. Are you a process junkie? Like, are you a productivity tool hacker? Like, it's asking the consulting guy if he's into processes.
Oh man, I'm a sticky notes and like whiteboard junkie, we'll say. And so
in the back there.
Definitely, yeah, exactly. You've got my whiteboard back there. So I'm a visual guy, and then I've definitely learned things in my job, but just of like how to stay organized. And I guess what you don't, I think it was Peter Drucker maybe, who said like what isn't seen like isn't managed, or some version of that. And so basically, if you don't have eyes on it, and if you're not like tracking metrics, like that's how things sort of fall out of whack, and that's how you lose sight of the bigger goals, right? And so with everything I'm doing, I'm trying to see, I always sort of have, the vision, and I try to walk that back into like, what do I need to be doing, and what things do I need to be looking at to assess my progress and see, if I'm moving along at the correct pace, or if I need to reassess. So definitely, I journal often. So yeah, I like to, I'm a big fan of reassessment.
Have you found that it helps you? Obviously, it helps with tracking things, but have you found that it helps you with, I guess, the planning processes of things? Do you write everything down in one place, or do you have it dispersed across multiple sticky notes, whiteboard, Notion, things like that? Do you have a home for all of that?
Yeah, so I love Notion. I try to keep as much of it digital as I can because to your point, right, like due to the wonders of the internet, right, like I can write something on my phone and have it accessible wherever I am on whatever device I happen to be on at that time. But certainly, I'm like I said, I am a visual guy, and sometimes you just need like that reminder when you wake up, and so you got to take out the Sharpie and a piece of paper and just like put it up big and put it up high because I wake up and my mind just starts like racing. And so sometimes you just need the actual billboard, right? To tell you like today, these are the two things that must get done today. And then once you do those things, it's fair game. So it's a mix of, I guess the skill that I'm still developing, but I think I've gotten pretty good at is knowing what can be digital and what has to be physical and put in the right place for me to take the proper action on it.
Oh, nice. I have a process for everything, you know.
Yeah, consulting, man. Yeah, it works.
So I heard a lot about your career.
Yeah.
And I've been following you for a little bit now, so I get the spoiler alerts of what you're doing in your kind of daily life here. But what are you passionate about outside of work and things like that? I see a camera in the back there. I've loved the photos you've been posting on Instagram,
Yeah.
and I've been enjoying it. So what are you passionate about outside of everything else?
I mean that's a great question. So I mean, yeah, photography is the obvious one. I picked that up like pretty recently. I'll say I've always wanted to get into it, but I've always, made the excuse of, I don't have the time, I can't afford a camera, blah, blah, blah. But it's like I sort of bit the bullet and stopped making excuses in the past year. And it's been just so it I don't even know how to say this, but it feels so good to be just so bad at something because it shows you like it shows you have such an opportunity to learn, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a place like New York where there's a photographer around every corner. I mean, if I walk around like Soho or Tribeca with a camera on, I mean, 10 people are going to stop me and say, oh, what's your aperture set at? Or how's your, what's your setting for this? Or where's your light meter and all this stuff. And I've just gotten into some really good conversations and met like awesome, incredible people through it. And it's a real like legitimate hobby too. And so I'm getting like all the gear, I'm getting all the camera straps, all the flashes, all the like cases and everything. And so that's pretty cool. And that's sort of my like creative outlet. And then on the side, outside of work, I also like to give back and mentor when I can because I'm definitely someone where just due to I definitely wouldn't be here today without people seeing something in me, but also having the time and the energy and the dedication to sort of nurture me and coach me up and teach me certain things that I didn't know at the time, right? So I try to, wherever possible, try to get back and help, put some of that knowledge out there as well, which some of that is satisfied by TikTok, but I also I work with a couple charities in the city, and I help mentor kids wherever possible. I was going into schools and teaching them things, personal finance and credit and applying to college and stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of that has obviously died down with COVID, but I'm hoping to have some opportunity to do that again in the future. So I would say those are the sort of giving back is how I sort of stay grounded and just have an immense amount of gratitude for where I am in my life and the opportunities I have because I definitely did not always have them. And then just the photography is just an incredible creative outlet to sort of get out of my own head and just enjoy the city and sort of see it in a new way.
How did you pick up photography in terms of you said you've always been kind of a fan of it, but you didn't know what kind of gear you
Yeah.
needed, things like that. But what about photography in general? Because there's a lot of other mediums or art forms out there that are kind of that creative outlet. But what
Right.
about photography that was like, this is something that I could actually see myself?
I love the idea of kind of capturing a moment in time because I mean that's all a photo is. It really is like a captured moment. And so looking at being able to look at something like a street corner, a garbage can, right, like an empty pizza box, right, and saying, if I go across the street and shoot it from like around the corner and I adjust these settings, I can get this photo that tells this story. But if I go somewhere else and maybe adjust the camera something and widen up the whatever, like I can get a completely different photo that tells a completely it evokes a completely different sense when you look at that image and it's the
Yeah.
same subject, the same thing, right? And so that's been sort of something to really mess around with. And I've loved the community, honestly, which is something I didn't really think about when I picked up a camera, but it's just like the people I've met. It's like, I don't know, like it's just been really nice to just sort of feel like I've been taught how to use a camera by the city of New York, because I'll go into a store and this person will tell me this, and I'll turn the corner and that person will tell me that. And I've gotten the best free training course in the world by just walking around with this camera. And obviously I must look like I don't know what the hell I'm doing, because people keep stopping me with tips, but I love it and I welcome it, because I don't know. So always down to learn.
You said it's a conversation starter, and it feels good to be like bad at something. You can't
Yeah.
be you can't be great at everything, and I think it's just part of being a normal human being, of just picking up something that you're not good at and really striving to be good at something.
And stretches that other part of the brain as well, right? Because
Yeah.
my job is very like logic based, model based, process based, but being able to get out of that and just say, let's make a good picture, let's take a good photo. It's like, I don't know, it's a real creative outlet for me, which is nice.
Nice. Sounds good. I saw you ran the marathon there in the New York City. What's the next race on your calendar?
So I don't know if I have any more marathons in me, to be honest, but I would love to do a couple halves. I think after running a marathon, like running and training for like half of that sounds like a dream. Like I would love to do that. And to be honest with you, there's definitely a part of me, right after I'd finished running, like the next like 2 weeks or so, where you almost feel this gap, like in your brain, or in your space, because you feel like you're missing something. Because for the past, I mean, it took me probably little over 4 months to train for this thing. And I was doing it every single day. And I was eating and dressing and acting. And like, I modeled my whole life in around like running this marathon, And
Yep.
so when that's done, it's like, oh, so I don't need to make a smoothie every day. I don't need to get up at 5 every day. I don't need to do this every day. And it's sort of like, you feel this big lack, and then you of course find ways to fill the time, right? But yeah, I would love to do another like half marathon, and I'm always down for a 5K. I've ran 2 5Ks since the marathons. Those have been just good little fun races.
Awesome. Well, next
Yeah.
time I'm in New York, we'll have to catch some miles together, or if you're out here in LA
Yeah,
at some point, catch some miles.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's also brings me back to the point of like having that support system that you brought up earlier. It's
Yeah.
not very often where you find a fiance or a support that is willing to kind of put up with like you said, waking up daily at 5 a.m. and like constantly being like, I can't do this because I have to go train for this. And someone who's
Yeah.
very understanding and can push you. That's awesome to hear that you have that.
Yeah, it's been a true blessing, honestly. I mean, I couldn't ask for really a better person to spend the rest of my life with, and that's why I asked her to marry me, right? So
Yeah.
I think for me, again, like I need like a grounding force and like a realistic force, and she is very much the dose of reality that I very much need sometimes. And so that's been crazy. But yeah, she had the biggest, sign out for me, when I was running. I actually got all these sweatshirts made that had like my face on them, and like New York City Marathon. And so that was crazy. But yeah, the support system is everything, because you get, because again, I mean, there are definitely people, where they get a following online, and then they sort of get high on their own supply, right? And
Yep.
and they also start assigning a lot of their self-worth and self-esteem to their videos. And so if something doesn't pop, they think it's something wrong with them, not something wrong with the video, And it's just like, I thankfully haven't really gotten there, because I feel like I do have a lot of that. I get a lot of that out of my own life, right? I feel, loved and accepted and a part of a real community, like in my life. And so thankfully that allows me to approach my content from a place of like, let me share something. And if people rock with it, people vibe with it, that's cool. But if not, like, I've still got like life over here to enjoy and be a part of. So
Yeah. Awesome. Do you think your community will be not, I hate using the word leveraged, but like, do you think you'll use the community that you're building for more of a personal gain in terms of like your career, or do you think it'll be more in the real sense of community of being like having, hey, I'm in LA this weekend, can I couch surf, something like that? Like, Is there a bed open for me at your place? Like, where do you think the community is going to take you?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly say that my answer to that right now is I don't know. And
Yeah.
that's what I sort of love about it. I think I've done so in the past, I've done things where I've offered like resume reviews, LinkedIn reviews, coaching calls. Like I've offered some of those products in the past, and it was fun. But I think, for me, I really want to be in a position where I'm setting myself up and that person up on the other side of that transaction to get really the most out of it. And so I'm definitely open to, because people reach out to me all the time. They find my email, they reach out to me. I mean, you, right? This whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Via email, but people find me on, Instagram and LinkedIn, and they're constantly reaching out and asking for me to get into these like one-on-one coaching sessions. And I'm not opposed to that in the future, but I just have to make sure I'm doing it in a way where me and as well as they are getting the most out of that interaction. So, and then I honestly think if I said, if I did a meetup, it would be me and my fiance, and we'd just be standing there for hours on end. So, I don't think I'm quite at that level yet, but that does excite me, right? Because as I've learned more and sort of got somewhat connected to the creator influencer scene here in New York, seeing what people are able to do with pretty sizable followings has been exciting. So, again, like I think it's a great opportunity, and I think it's great leverage, like either way, whether it's just a connection of wild and crazy friends around the world, or whether it's something where I can, open up this whole income stream and have mentorship and all these other products. I mean, I'm open to anything and everything, but right now I'm just trying to, make videos and have a good time while doing it. So
That's awesome. Yeah, like you mentioned, I reached out to you via email, and it was one of those things where I was following you for a bit. I was like, why not just reach out to him? I'm a smaller creator, so it meant a lot to hear back from you. And it was one of those things where even if you didn't respond, I vibe with your content. I vibe with who you are as a
yeah.
person. So I was like, I'm going to support this guy no matter what. And that's something that I'm trying to build, as a community of just like-minded people or friends all across the world. And that's what I thought the power of social media would do now, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. Like I'm always willing. I mean, if anyone, is watching this or, hears this later, like I always encourage you to reach out. I do try to respond to everyone. The volume has gotten pretty crazy recently, but I do try to set aside some time, just to get in there and reach out when I can, because it's grateful, right? Because it could just be nothing, So, and even if it goes back to nothing again, like I'm fine, but for the time that I'm here, if people, want to reach out to me and get on a podcast, or just have like a quick little phone call, or just, exchange a message back and forth. Like I'm always open. I'm always down. I'm here to, be whoever I can to whoever I can. So
You're one of the good ones in this quote unquote influencer community of, like you said, you hear
yeah,
stories of things. I'm close to LA, and I have friends that are, he
right.
has quite a large following. But when you get around different people in the LA scene, or like you said, probably in New York, Miami, wherever it might be,
Right.
there's people who are not as genuine as they are, or trying to make themselves out to be. So
Yeah.
it's good to see that you're sticking to it and building a genuine community out of it.
Yeah. And again, I think a lot of that just comes from, I guess my approach has always been to, I want to be this guy and live this life, and then sort of open the curtain through social media, and you
Yeah.
get the sneak previews and you get to learn more about me and what I do. And if you vibe, we vibe, that's cool. I guess I never wanted to approach it from this perspective of like, building it around social media first, because I feel like that's where you get into these situations where you sort of have to, tie some of your self-worth into these like followings, and I don't know, it just gets, and I would hate for someone to have that reaction, right? I mean, I remember like I was probably, I mean, gosh, I was like 12 years old maybe, and there was like that Ask Reddit thread of like, have you ever met a celebrity? People like have these horror stories of people that meet,
Yeah.
they're just complete, like they're just not that great of a person sometimes. And so I would hate for someone to have that reaction, towards me. So I try to be friendly as often as possible.
I was going to say, as much as you don't think about it right now, is that you're turning into one of those new age celebrities, whether you like it or not, by just sharing your life. And you never want to have a bad impression or be judged by the way you treat people.
No,
So
I don't want a horror story, man. Exactly. I don't want to be in one of those, ask Reddit threads, right? What TikTok creators have you met and how were they? Some guys in there, talking shit. So
It's one of my worst nightmares. Ending up on Reddit, you just don't want to be there.
not in that thread for sure.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Final kind of wrap up things here. Do you have any guilty pleasures, whether that be content or activities you like to do? I know I had an interview with a now a good friend of mine, Julius Van Ruin. He flips homes down in Florida, and he's a real estate investor down there. But his guilty pleasure is just binge watching football all Sundays. During the week, from Monday through Saturday, he's like, go, go, go. Him and his fiance, go, go, go. But Sunday is their football watching time. Do you have something like that or something similar?
That is a fascinating question. Do I have a guilty pleasure? So I'm actually low key addicted to Oreos. And that's something where it's like I can't even buy a package because I'll go through it. And so to tell you how serious this is, before I started marathon training, I bought a package of Oreos and just in 2 days, legitimately, I went through the entire package like a complete savage. And then I started marathon training on that third day. It's okay, I had to get it out of my system. And then cold turkey, I cannot do this, and so that's what I sort of gave up, right? Like people do for Lent or whatever. I gave up incredibly tasty chocolate sandwich cookies, to run this marathon. So that's definitely one. And then I'm a pretty big comic book and superhero fan. So I've always been a huge fan of Marvel. My older brother, who he loved comic books, and so he would have them, and he was a true 80s 90s kid, and so he had the Nike shoe boxes full of old X-Men comics from the 90s, and so I'd always go down there and steal them, and read them, and so I've always been super into comic books, so I love watching every Marvel TV, movie, video game. I always try to stay up to date, and even if I can't dedicate the time to see the movie or read the comic book or whatever, play the video game, I always like to know sort of what's going on, because I don't know, I'm obsessed. I want to say part of the reason I moved to New York was that you always hope that one day you'll look up and then you'll see Spider-Man swinging by. So hasn't happened yet, but we'll see.
I was gonna say, you're still holding out hope there.
Yeah, exactly.
Next kind of ending question is do you see yourself in New York for the long term? And what's your if you had it your way, what's your destination of choice for travel wise?
Okay. So first question, I think for who I am and what I want right now and what I want to do, I think New York is one of, if not the perfect place for me. Right. And so I think I'm definitely not done. I've been in New York, a little over 4 years, and I've loved I won't say every minute of it, but I've loved a lot of my time here. And I've definitely got a good relationship with the city right now. And so for now, that answer is yes. But I definitely know that in the future, when I'm married and I have kids and maybe I've got a bit more financial security, or whatever, it may be nice to go somewhere else. We've talked about just going back home. I'm from just outside of Atlanta originally, in Georgia. And nice. So go there, build something on a couple acres and, live that life. It's something we talk about, it's on the books, but yeah, for right now, I can't imagine myself being anywhere except in New York. And then vacation wise, I cannot wait to go to the Amalfi Coast. I'm going there for my honeymoon. It's been on my Pinterest vision board forever. Yeah, so that's just it's the whole vibe, man. I don't know if you've seen Tenet, the Christopher Nolan film.
I was gonna say, I know who the guy is, but yeah,
that Denzel Washington's son in it, and he's the time travel guy. So the villain of that movie, he has this yacht in the Amalfi Coast, and it's docked, and so it stays there the whole film. And every time it cut to that scene, I'm oh my god, this is my dream, right? I want to be basically a villain in a Christopher Nolan movie, right? I want the yacht with the tan suit and the laid out charcuterie board, on the Amalfi Coast. That's definitely the vibe. And I'm lucky, through my my previous job, which is that again, that classic Monday in, Friday out consulting job. I racked up a lot of hotel points. So
Yeah.
I blew them all. I mean, we're really doing it big, and so we're able to go over there and get a couple really nice resorts and all of our flights and stuff. And so that was really really nice. Definitely worth all those nights in the hotel and waking up at 4 a.m. So yeah, I mean, I Amalfi Coast is like at the top of my travel list right now.
That is so cool that it's not just a wish list for you. It's actually on the books. You're making it happen.
Oh, it's booked. Yes, I'll show you my checking account, man. It's booked. It's heavy, but it's worth it. So
I can imagine the dent that one took.
some things are worth the money.
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what marriage is
Yeah.
for. But to close, this is the final segment. You can plug everything that you've got. You mentioned earlier you've had an e-com store that turned into a podcast. I have no idea you had a podcast of your own. Like, did not know any of this. So go ahead and plug everything.
So yeah, I mean, so that was definitely dog chasing tail syndrome. But yeah, last in 2020 when we were home, the first time for quarantine, I started a brand called Mill and Oak, and we were going to be the finest made in America marketplace. I basically had this idea of taking the best made, best quality American made, like clothing, home decor, home goods, towels and linens and all these beautiful home products that are made, in the United States, and put them in a beautiful, like modern marketplace setting, because I wasn't really seeing anyone doing that. And there were large American made marketplaces, but there was no quality control, right? And so you get stuff on there, that was American made, but it wasn't necessarily the most highest quality, right? Like I wanted to make like the West Elm, but like focus on like American made stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I'm obviously running a marketplace with, I think, I have like 14 plus vendors on the site. It was just a lot of work, and I really vastly underestimated, as I tend to do, the effort it would take. So unfortunately, that one had to be shut down later last year. But again, like, it's a learning experience. And funny enough, I was making videos for that business on TikTok, which sort of got me a little introduced to the platform. And so I took those lessons, and turned them into the next thing. And so everything's sort of a stepping stone. And I don't really believe in like wasted time or wasted experience. As long as you're doing something with intention and you're bringing your all towards it, even if it fails in a traditional sense, you're going to take something and apply it to the next thing you do, which is going to make it go even further. Right. And so that's sort of my general outlook. But to be honest, man, I mean, I've got nothing to plug. I mean, follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on TikTok, ask me questions, and just come hang out and see what I'm doing. And if it appeals, drop me a follow and drop a comment, and we'll take it from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate the opportunity, honestly.
Of course. Thank you again for coming on. I really do appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yes, likewise.
Awesome. Well, this has been Out to the Lines with Colin Rocker-Rice. Thank you very much, guys.